back. This is Dr. Verna Price, the founder of Girls Taking Action. And I'm glad to see you back, glad to have you back. And this episode, of course, episode 1, we talked about your power as a parent. And this episode, we're focusing on distance learning specifically and how this works for you so that you can make it work for your children. Now, I do understand that we're all operating in different spaces. So as I have this conversation with you, think about space, first of all. Are you in a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 children? Are you in a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 children? Are you in a home, a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom home? Whatever your space is, a part of distance learning is figuring out in your space how you're going to organize that space for learning. I have a good friend of mine, and they are actually I call them a farm family, and they have homeschooled all 9 of their children, every last one. And I can remember going to the farm and visiting them and thinking to myself, how do you do this? Because her home is so organized with 9 children, so organized. All of her children know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it. And she had figured out a system. And this was really a mystery to me for a long time. I had to just watch how she did this thing and took some cues from her, some clues from her in terms of how distance learning. And for her, it was homeschooling her children. So with distance learning, first of all, it simply means that you're learning from a distance. And that distance basically means you're learning outside of a structured school system. Now, depending on your school system, how your work and the work of your children comes to you will differ. But let me step back. Every school system, for the most part, will have some sort of communication process for parents. Now, in my school district, that's called a parent portal. What that means is that our school district puts up everything that I need to know about my child and what's going on with them in school in the parent portal. In the parent portal, I can find out about their grades. I can find out if they have been tardy or absent for a class. I can find out if there's any behavior issues. It all happens in the parent portal. I can even find out things like, is the activity nice? I have 2 seniors, and when is prom? When are things happening for the seniors? When should I be buying my yearbook? All those things are happening in the parent portal. First and foremost, if you have not signed up for some form of communication with your schools, it is critical that you immediately get that piece done. Why? Because in that piece is where you will find out instructions that you need for your child's education. So first things first, have you contacted your school about the way they will communicate with you about your child's education? Whether that's a parent portal, whether that is a phone call home, whether that are the letters that they sent to you, whether that is through a text message, whatever it is, you've got to find that out. Now, suppose you are a family that is a English as a second language family. What I would say to you is that find out, get to your interpreter resources and ask them to work with you to get to that school, calling the main office of your school. That should get you right to where you need to go. Call the main office of your school, and or if you're, you're in a big system, say like Minneapolis Public Schools, and the school is not picking up, say that your elementary school is not answering the phone, call the Board of Education, call the main office there and say, I am looking for my school. I need to talk to someone about getting signed up in the parent portal or getting information about my child and their homework and their learning. So right away, you've got to make sure that you are getting direct information from your school about your child. Every morning, I am checking my phone for an email and or a text message and or a phone call from my school about my children. And every morning, I am making sure that I know what my children are supposed to be doing that day. Now, if you have a high school student and you are in their parent portal, if you're in the parent portal, what you'll be able to see is every assignment that was given to your child. So then you can actually check on them. For example, last week, my daughter, who's a senior, she had a huge project that was due for her psychology class. Well, that project, she was thinking the project was due on a certain date, and the teacher was thinking that the project was due on a particular date. So they had crossed wires. So here in the parent portal, my child looked like she was failing her psychology class. The truth was that she really wasn't. She simply was missing a really big assignment. So the teacher, I looked into my phone, the teacher had sent an email saying, your daughter has a huge project. She must finish that up by such and such a date. So we went ahead and took care of that. So number one thing for distance learning is find out from your school what it is that you are supposed to be doing, what your child is responsible for. Number one. Number two, figure out the spatial clarity for your house. And be sure that every one of your children has a specific spot where they are to be learning. So if you are, let's just say, I'm going to use my home, for example. The dining room table is the spot for my son with special needs. The family room is the spot for my 11-year-old who's in 6th grade. My daughter has two spots. She has a bunk bed, so her top bunk is the spot that she uses for her learning. And then she also has a spot down in the living room where she can also do work there too. My 11-year-old, sometimes she will also work at the kitchen table as well. But they all have different spots. And why are those spots so important? Because at those spots, they can keep their learning material. So at the dining room table, my son's learning materials, they're right there. His computer is right there. His headphone is right there. We're not moving his learning materials around the house. That is where his information is. My 11-year-old, my 6th grader, she has her spot in the family room. Her laptop is there. Her textbooks are there. Her notebooks are there. Everything is there for her to do her learning there. Now, as a parent, then what I get to do is then I move from place to place literally during the school hours. So between 9 and 3, 9 a.m., 3 p.m., which are school hours for my children, I will move from my son's area, working with him in the dining room, to the family room, checking on my sixth grader, to my daughter's bedroom, checking on her top bunk. Sometimes she moves to her bottom bunk, but she's there and she's consistently doing work. So figuring out your space for your children is very, very critical. As an expectation, your children, just like they would be in school, are to be in their spaces during school hours and doing their work during school hours. Now let's talk about how you set up your day. So first you set up your home, okay? First, actually, you're in communication, constant communication with your child's school, with your child's teacher. Let me just say very quickly, parents, if your teacher is not communicating with you and or your child or children, it is a problem. What does that mean? That means that that teacher is not doing their part. They are not providing instruction. Just because we are distance learning does not mean that teachers don't get to do their part. Teachers must do their part. They must provide instruction, virtual instruction. They must provide, if your school is one that provides packets of information, they must have those packets ready and ready to be delivered to you. They must also correct those packets and get them back to you. Those teachers must be communicating with you, the parent, and those teachers should be available to you if you have questions. There are some things that your child will be assigned that you just don't know about. There's some new ways of doing math. There's some new ways for science. There might be a reading exercise that you don't quite know or know how to figure out. Let me tell you, your teachers are still your teachers and they're still responsible for teaching. So you do not at any time feel as though you're bothering a teacher. You're not. All the teachers that I talk to and the principals that I talk to say they would rather for parents to contact them and let them know and ask them questions versus not asking questions and then your child ends up failing out of school. That is not what we want, parents. You contact your teachers and get the information that you need for your children. So first, you're in touch with your teachers. Secondly, you are creating the space for your children to do their work. And let me tell you, parents, be very strict about their learning. Your children are distance learning. They are not on vacation. And here's what we have found. We are finding that there are many children who are not going to school. Parents, I'm going to beg you, make sure your child gets their attendance done every day. When they go into their portal, if they're online learning, which most of you are online learning, most of you are in some sort of online program, whether it's Google Classroom or Microsoft Classroom or or some other online what they call platform, you are in that space. Make sure your children, you're taking attendance for your children or doing attendance every morning, that they're showing that they're going to school. Make sure your children are doing work, doing school hours. And make sure that your children are focused and getting it done, parents, because long term, and I'm thinking long term for you, long term, you want your child to still have passed and still have finished up their work, their coursework for this semester. So make sure that there's space for your children to have. Okay, so we've figured out the space. The third thing to figure out is to make sure that you have what I would call a schedule for your child every day. And in that schedule, be sure that you schedule breaks for your children. Many of the distance learning platforms which are online, literally your child could be staring at a screen for hours upon a time. We do not want that. What we want is for you to be able to schedule at the time of your children working. So I give my children hours. So I literally will put the timer on, put on a timer, let them work for an hour, give them at least a 15-20-minute break. My children go outside in the yard, they go and ride their bike around the block, or they go and they may watch their favorite television show on Channel 2, or they may just hang out and just kind of take a rest for a moment, but they take a break. It's important during the school day that they take a break. And here's the reality. When they're in a physical school, they give them breaks. They do get breaks. And so it's important that your child gets breaks. So as you build your schedule for the day, first of all, you're building in time when they wake up. Secondly, you're building in time to eat their breakfast. Third, you're building in their academic time into blocks. And then you're building in the times for them to take a break. You're building in time for them to have lunch, and then they're working another block for academics, and then they're taking a short break, and then they're working another block for academics before they're done for the day. So when it's all said and done, your child should get a quality 5 hours of school academic work every day. Now, as they're doing their academic work, parents, if you're like me, I'm working from home. So I've got to get some of my work done as well. But mostly what I do between 9 and 3 is literally check in with each of my children to see how they are coming along with their projects and to see if they need any help with anything. Now, you may say, Dr. Verna, I just don't know these subjects my children are studying. As a matter of fact, there may be some of you who are watching is that you barely graduated from high school yourself. Some of the reading is difficult for you. It's okay. You know how to pick up the phone. You know how to make a call. You know how to send a text message. Then you call that teacher. You call that school. And you say, you know what? My son, my daughter, they're having a problem with this assignment or that assignment. What am I saying to you, parents? Do not sit at home with your child, not understanding an assignment, and just let them not do it. That will not work. What I want you to do is to pick up the phone, call the school, and say, my child doesn't understand this assignment. Will you please have a teacher to call her or call him? Would you please schedule a Google Meets, which is a platform for meeting online with your child? Would you please schedule a time to help my son or my daughter work through this problem or work through this assignment? So it is very, very clear to your children that you will not allow them to simply not do the work. What you're going to do is to help them by calling their teachers and getting the help that they need for their assignments. Distance learning. Now, let me say something else to you, parents. If your child's distance learning platform is all virtual, it's all on the computer, and you have no idea how it works, what I want you to do, literally call your school district, call your school building, call your teacher, and say to them, I have no idea how the technology works that my child has, and I need some tutoring on this, and I need someone to help me figure out how this works so that you can get the help that you need so that you can help your children. That, for me, is how you use the power of your parenting. And it is okay, parents, to not know. It's fine. There's lots going on with technology, and it's moving very, very quickly. It's okay. What I say all the time is that there's no shame in my game. In other words, I am going to ask for the help that I need. If you need some help with technology, parents, there's lots of classes, there's lots of, help out there with your school districts to get the help that you need in terms of understanding what your children are working on and how to use the basic technology that they have. So in distance learning, a few things just to review with you. First of all, make sure that you're connected to your school. Make sure that you have a parent portal that is open and that you understand how to use, and that you have a direct line of communication with your children's teachers, with your school principals, and you know what's going on. That you are checking your phone, that you are picking up the calls, that you are checking your email, and that you know what's happening. Secondly, create space for your children to do their work in your home. Children need structure and they need expectations, and they must have space. Now, I'm hearing this too often, is that many children who have younger siblings are being asked to take care of those siblings during the day. Let me tell you, parents, it is a disservice to your children to turn them into little parents when in fact they have got to get their education. The best thing that you can do for your children is to make sure that during this time of distance learning is that you do whatever you have to do to make sure that they stay in school and they get their education. Now, after school's done, after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if you need some additional help with your smaller children and your older children, are there to help, that's, of course, that's common sense. Of course, that's what we do as family. But during your learning times, you make sure that your children are in their spots, that they are working, and that they are focused, and that they're getting it done. The third thing is that besides making sure that you're connected to your school parent portal, you are actually having your spatial organized, your home is organized for learning. The third thing is be sure that you build a realistic schedule for your children, and make sure that in that learning schedule you put in breaks so they have time to take a break, get up, move around, and make sure that they can actually just remain what I call balanced. Right? They're balanced. More than ever, your children need to exercise. And if that simply means you and your children all get into a small little group and you walk around your building, or you walk around your block, you can make them, you can make them mask. Of course you can. Of course you can. Or you can just tie something around them so that they're protected as they go outside. But you get them outside, get them in the sun, get them some air, and make sure that you take an evening walk with your children so that you can make sure that they're getting some physical exercise outside your home. And of course, you're adhering with all of the Department of Health and the Center for Disease Control, all of what they're saying you're adhering to. You have your mask, you have gloves, and or you are creating a mask for your children, and you're making sure, even if your children just put on winter gloves sometimes, so that they're not touching anything and they're actually staying with you as a family pod to get them out to get some air. What I want to say to you parents, you can do this distance learning thing. It's possible. You can do it. And your children need you to do this thing. And the fourth thing I would say to you is that if you need help, please call your schools, call your school district, call your principal, call your teachers. You may even call another parent who better knows what's going on or better understands something, but definitely call for help. Do not sit in your home with your children, not going to school, and not call for help. Get the help that you need. Okay, our next session, we're going to talk about how to connect to those systems that I'm talking about, asking for help, how to connect to those systems and what's available to you. I look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you, and have a great week of distance learning with your children. Bye.